are, people. Security Unfiltered, Episode 4. Somehow we made it this far. What are we talking about today, Derek?
We're talking about leadership,
Oh boy, this is gonna be a fun one.
the qualities that make for good leaders, the qualities that make for bad leaders, horrible leaders, the leaders you should run away, but definitely the good qualities, right? The leaders that you want to stick around and support, even through the rough
If you're
times.
if you're hearing this and you're taking it personal, I don't know what to tell you.
We can
I
all
mean, what,
improve.
what can we do, right?
It's just our opinion, right? Some people like getting bashed in the head, but
And I've never been a manager, so there's that. I've
but
never managed. I've never managed to manage. So
what's interesting about this topic is that you don't always have to be a manager to be a leader, right? I often found
yeah,
that it required more out of me in a team lead position to be a leader because you have a lot more flexibility in your ability to navigate politics and go to your group and talk to them. So I think that that's a good distinction we can make between being a manager and then just being a leader by being that senior person or that team lead, right? Where you can kind of have the best of both worlds in a lot of situations.
yeah, yeah. I think being a team lead um, is I think it's where it's at. I mean, in my opinion, I've enjoyed it every time that I've been a team lead, and I mean, I feel like I connect with my teammates, on a totally different level, and I can still kind of guide them through different things and assist them when need be, and give them advice, almost like a manager, but obviously not with the same kind of firing power, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, what are some qualities that you think make leaders be more effective? Wh- What do you think are some successful qualities that you've experienced in good leaders?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I would think that just leading by example, right? Setting the tone, getting
Yeah,
your hands dirty, right? Not falling away when it hits the fan, not disappearing when the pressure's on, but being out there in front, right? Because if you're out there and you're setting that tempo, if you're setting that pace, then the people who work for you, uh, the ladies, the guys, they'll follow your lead, and you don't want them to be timid, right? Especially when there might be an incident taking place, or there's a particular project or initiative, and they're getting pressure from what the business might need. You want them to give it their best go, right? And you have lessons learned, right? So make your mistakes, but make them in a way that you were trying your best and you had your best theory in place. But then come back and do that you know that remediation and that lessons learned activity afterwards. But you don't want them to be timid. You want them to feel confident in what they do. So I think that you definitely want to lead by example, right? So if you need to get 30 new laptops imaged by the end of the day, well, roll up your sleeves and get the image and right along with your guys, right? Because that's what it takes. And you should never be so above any activity that you
right,
govern, right? Because number one, you lose touch of reality. You might start expecting things that, well, if you just actually sat in their shoes, that you would realize that's not really possible, right?
right.
Um, so if you can come down every now and then and actually perform some activities, monitor some activities, you keep a good touch of reality when it comes to actually, well, how much work actually goes into producing these artifacts or these deliverables.
Yeah, I think something that I've always valued is not just a manager that is always able to step in and actually, lend a hand and give some real technical advice that I can actually use that is valid. Um it makes me feel like I'm working for someone that actually worked their way up and like kind of did this job before, right? So
Yeah,
I have more
yeah,
respect for them. But I think um the managers that I have always respected the most and just jived with the most, have never really had any issues with them, are the ones that keep your time in mind. They are very, very conscious of your workload, even probably even more than you are conscious of it, and they will fend off work. They will fight for you to get less work. I mean, they kind of control it, so they will make sure that you get less work. They will make sure that that your work life balance is in check. When you, from what I've experienced, when you don't have managers that do that, or don't have that consideration built in, it could be a recipe for disaster. It could be really bad.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. When you go through it, you can kind of protect those who are working for you, who have to perform the work, because what were the triggers for you? Where did you get stressed? Where were you overloaded? Right?
Right.
What were the activities and tasks that came in from a different department that were just, hey, like, relax, relax a little bit, right? When you get a manager that comes into your environment, or a new leader that comes into your environment, but they don't know your company culture, right? Well, they can overpromise, and in some of those situations, it's like, hey, we have an SLA with this group, right? So when they ask us for certain things, maybe it's 15 days, maybe it's 3 days,
Hmm.
whatever, right? Don't go promising that you can do it in 3 hours, right? Because
Right.
now what you're doing is you're setting expectations, and those expectations may not be able to be hit all of the time. So that person who's, the representative of your group should be well aware of those activities, right? And how much time it takes, and how much buffer that you need in order to do it in a way that you're not pressing, that you're not making mistakes, that you have the opportunity to double check your work, that you have a tendency to lean towards quality versus just quantity, right? And being somebody who's either performed the work before or has a good grasp of what that work entails, it definitely helps you uh, put people in better places, right? For instance, hey Joe, I need you to configure the SIM and set up 100 rules that's going to correlate all these different events. And can you have it done by the end of the week?
Right. Like, have you done that before? Do you know how much really goes into that? Like, I could spend a week on one. I mean, come on. Uh,
Yeah,
you know, I think that this is a topic that we definitely have to address. And kind of the reason behind this episode is that, like, the security field is extremely competitive. It is on a totally different level from probably 90% of IT. I'm I'm probably not even close to being inaccurate when I say that, which is a crazy thing to think, right? But there's so few good security professionals out there, and there's so many roles that are open for it. I mean, like, literally, I'm getting pinged every day for a new role. Every day, one or two, maybe three job postings I'm getting pinged on. And so managers, and I mean companies as a whole, but managers, if you have a, I'm just going to say it, if you have a shitty company that doesn't care, but you have a good manager, I mean, you could stay. Well, right? Like, that's a good situation. And the manager understands the market, right? He understands that, like, look, even if I fired this guy, by the time he hits the lobby, he'll have a job offer. Like,
yeah,
I
you're not
mean,
hurting them.
yeah, it's you're giving me a promotion, because you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go somewhere else. I'm gonna get a new title. I'm gonna go get a 30K pay bump, depending on where I'm at, of course. And it's gonna be gravy. Unless I do something really malicious and I get, like, blacklisted in the entire city,
Yeah,
which, I mean, I wouldn't put it past that happening, but shit, I've never heard of that happening. Um,
I,
but like,
I heard of
I
it.
I know
I,
you have.
I've heard of it.
The one thing that I've heard on other videos and whatnot on YouTube, was that managers now in the more competitive fields actually have to resell the current role to their top performers and really to any of their employees if it's in a hot field. And the reason being is that, I'm working for company A. I've been there, it doesn't even matter. I've had companies reach out to me my first week at a new job. And I've made it abundantly clear to them that it was my first week. And they were like, I'm not worried about that. Like, guys,
That's not our
relax.
problem. That's not our
You know
problem.
what I mean? Like, it's crazy. And, managers are starting to realize that and they have to resell the role to them, not necessarily like start all over, but good managers will sit down with their employees, will sit down with their team and make sure that not just the manager that they themselves are meeting the expectations of the employees, but they also want to address any issues. Hey, what am I doing wrong? What am I messing up? Is there anything I'm making harder about your day that I can fix so that you stay, so that you're happy, so that you stay, you get promoted, you know, what does your career outlook look like here in your eyes? And let me make sure that I match that to realistic expectations within the company and make things move within the company. I've had maybe two managers that have actually done that, right? And I mean, they have been a diamond in the rough. They were my biggest proponent in every meeting, in every closed door meeting that I wasn't even in. They would defend me tooth and nail. Um, those guys were constantly seeking to make sure that no matter what happened, I was taken care of before anything else. I mean, like anything, you know, like there there was several times when like a code red would happen, and my manager would be profusely apologizing to me that there was no one else, that had to get on this call, and it was just me and him, and he would get on the call with me. That was one of the things, and I know I'm talking a lot here, but
No,
that
it's
was one of the things that I have respected the most out of one of my former managers was whenever I was called, if even if I wasn't on call and I was called, I always answered my call. But whenever I got on the call, my manager was either already on there or he was dialing in. And he had a personal policy like I don't give a fuck what is going on in my life. If someone on my team is being called after hours, I'm going to be on that call. I am going to be making sure that one, they're needed on the call. And two, I'm going to make sure that he has everything that they need, to be successful in this event. Right. And then you make up the time with like,
mhm.
hey, take tomorrow off. Don't worry about it. Whatever.
Yeah, that's great, right? You notice that managers like that, though, they tend to cap themselves, right, in
Yeah,
terms of
they
how
do.
high they can move up,
Yep.
because you see a lot of situations in which it's a sacrifice, right?
Yep.
You can either be for your guys and the women on your team, and you can be there to protect them, or you can be it for yourself. And
Yeah.
that's where bad managers, they tend to revolve or move from the idea of selfishness, as in they're in that position now with the idea of being somewhere else, right? So
Right.
it's a temporary stop for them. So what happens is that they're accumulating political cash, and they want to divvy out that cash when it best suits them and best benefits them. And so what you'll see is situations in which there may be a conflict that takes place, but they don't come to your defenses or your team defenses, because where they're thinking, well, do I really want to spend my cash here?
If I push too hard, maybe I won't
Yeah,
get that promotion or I won't get that bonus.
exactly. Right. I need to show, the people above me or the powers that be, that, I'm one of them.
Mhm.
What invariably happens is it becomes a us versus them. It's like
Yeah.
all the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so for someone like me, I played sports growing up, right? Football, basketball. I mean, like my mother was a single mom, so she had me in sports, immediately after school.
Get you out
While
the house, get you doing
yeah,
something.
so I grew up around that coaching, mentoring, but being a part of a team atmosphere since I was 4, right? 4 years old. And so to me, being a part of a team was always something that was it's us, right? Do what you have to do in order to win, right? In order to succeed. And sometimes that meant that you might have a skill, but you have to sacrifice that skill because your team needs something else, right?
Right,
You might need to become a better person setting picks. You might need to be a better defender. You need to be a better rebounder, right? You have three equally good shooters. You're not going to be Steph Curry here, son. You need to dive on that floor and get these loose balls. And
more
so the
Dennis
same,
Rodman.
yeah, yeah, right. And so those dynamics exist in organizations where each team has certain characteristics per person. So you may have your ultra analytical person who dives into the details and can spend hours upon hours in technical research and if you ask them a question, they'll give you a thesis statement on the damn thing.
Yeah,
That's me, right? I get in trouble for
I
that
couldn't tell.
sometimes. But then you have people who lead with their charisma, right, and their social skills, who are able to motivate people and inspire people, right? And there might not be into it as technically, but they're able to actually move people, right? And just be somebody that helps bring levity to a group, laugh, joke, keep it light. And then you have people who are just like, I'm not here for making friends. I'm just here to perform my role, right? You always
Right,
get those guys.
right,
And, and so there's a dynamic
right.
there, right? And so and managers have it tough, man. Can you imagine the executive level and having to deal with all of that, but then deal with individuals? People as individuals are unique, and I
Yeah,
mean,
we're
when
all
you're in that
unique.
position, yeah, and when you're in that position when one of your guys can't come in because he dropped the iron on his foot and he broke his pinky toe, and damn it,
And
you
gotta
guys got
take
a
that toe
project.
up and get in, man. What the fuck you mean?
But see, that's where it comes in. Where's your leadership style? Are you empathetic? Are you sympathetic? Are you somebody that's saying, "Hey, man, suck it up, man. Come on, we can do this. This is not." It
Yeah,
depends, right? Because people respond to it differently, and so you actually have to figure that out as a leader. You can't treat everybody the same, right? A lot of
right,
times they'll tell you that you need to treat everybody the same. You kind of do, and you kind of don't, right? You need to know that, man, Joe, if you tell him to go, follow up with that team about their vulnerabilities, Joe's going to get it done. So if you want that done, you send Joe,
I'm gonna
right?
be on top of him.
Right.
Derek
But
knows.
but there are some people who will say, hey, you tell me your time frame and I'll acquiesce and I'll give you as much time as needed. And then you'll realize that there's a project that's been going on for a year, right? So it
Yeah,
depends, right? There's a lot of different dynamics there. But in terms of being a good leader, right? One of the things is, like I said, lead by example. And another one is just hold people accountable, right?
yeah, yeah. I think, I think maybe one of the largest pitfalls that a manager can fall into, from what I've experienced, is saying one thing and then doing another, or um laying laying expectations for something and then it ended up being another or a different expectation. um that has always been by far, like, the biggest thing that just makes me want to leave. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. When I lose sight of your expectations and I feel like they're changing and I feel like I can never meet them, as someone that wants to excel in my career, wants to get promoted, wants to not just meet expectations but excel them. When I constantly feel like I'm not doing good and it's not due to my own fault. Like, what mind state do you think that I'm going to be in? I'm not going to be in a mind state where it's like, well, I don't want to do, I don't want to do any work for him because I don't know what is really going to come of it. I'm going to do the job right, and then it's not going to be enough. And I've been in those situations before. It is extraordinarily frustrating. I have tried to resolve it before, and the times that I've run into that situation, it's fallen on deaf ears each time. But I mean, it's been it's been hard. It's been hard.
Those so in those situations, from what I've seen, there's usually a conflict of interest, right? As the manager, you're supposed to be delivering on the strategic roadmap, the tactical roadmap. But then a lot of times it's not really set in stone. It's really dynamic, right?
Hmm.
So you're getting this from senior management. Get your guys to do X, Y, Z. Get them to perform this way. Get them to deliver on this. And then next week it changes, right? And so then you have to relay that information, and then everybody's looking at you like, well, what the hell? You
I
know,
think
what
I I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
no, no, no. Yeah. No, I was just saying, like, so in that situation, right? It's like, what can a manager do when they're the ones that's stuck in a rock in a hard
Yeah.
place? And, you know, instead of actually being transparent, right? Which is one of those things that makes a good leader, where they can pass that information on to you, say, hey guys, I'm sorry about that. But it came down to me. This is where they want us to go. I'll buy you a beer. We can bitch about it.
That gets a lot of things done with my world. You give me a beer, I'll do a whole lot.
well, so that's the thing, right? It's like there's an aspect where you have to connect to your guys, know what their motivations is,
Yeah.
and know what they're stressed about, and then help them, right? Because otherwise, you're their only interface for all. And I used to hear all kind of crazy things when getting into management, right? It's like, well, just imagine yourself being in a tree and there are monkeys all above you. Well, your job as a manager is to open up the umbrella and make sure that all that poop doesn't
What?
land on your guy's head. Well, that's hey, people got allegories.
I guess
But
that's
hey,
a good way to think of it. Maybe that's an interesting way.
you don't want the monkeys to crap on your team's head, so you're hanging in the trees with an umbrella. And but to put it in the real life, activities that take place, things roll downhill. And so you do want to be that filter, right, to protect your guys from having to deal with certain things that may impact them negatively. So
Yeah.
you have to be there to, block some of that stuff and take some of them hits, right? And if you take too many of them, well, what happens is that, well, you're going to permanently kind of uh, you know, box yourself in to not being able to be one of the senior group
Right.
because, well, you're one of them. You protect your guys, you protect your team, you stand up for them, you say no, right?
Yeah.
And it can put a cap on you, right? But that's what good leaders, that's that's kind of what you do, right? It's a balancing act.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with that, when from my point of view, when expectations change, maybe randomly from above my own manager, and then he has to, adjust expectations and whatnot. Whenever they are transparent with me and open with me, just like, hey, I just got told by this senior director that it needs to be done this way or by this date rather than what I told you before. I may even still be frustrated, but now I understand. Right? Like now it's no longer an issue. Now I understand what's going on. Thank you for keeping me in the loop. And you know, I, I always like in my first one-on-ones with my manager, even in the interviews. I mean, I'm very open with what I'm expecting and with how I expect, you know, my manager to interact with me, what I expect from my manager and things like that because I have always found that setting expectations properly and early always benefit always benefit the entire situation early on. And the managers that get that, they excel with that. And then the managers that either don't get that or don't care about that, um, to be quite honest, their teams are a revolving door. That's how it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. You'll see a lot of turnover with. I mean, there's all kinds of sayings, right? Like people don't leave companies; they leave managers,
Oh
right?
yeah, 100%. I have never left a company. Never. No.
Well, so I mean, it takes a lot longer for for the organization's mess dysfunction to kind of build up, and you'd have to be there a long time. You're a manager; you deal with every day,
Yeah.
right? So it's a lot quicker turnaround time, right? For if they're bad, well, they're going to plant their seeds in you, and you're going to have an opportunity really quickly to make a decision on whether or not you want to stick around or leave.
Mhm.
When the organization is dysfunctional, right? Sometimes it's so high up that all you notice is that things don't seem right, right? Well, processes might be broken. Things are a little unorganized, but you have a lot more room, right, to kind of process that, right? But when it's your boss and and that's supposed to be your first support,
Mhm.
then it becomes a lot more, it's a lot quicker, right, for your boss to kind of lead you out. There are situations where you can leave an organization, for instance, if you're in a smaller organization, 50 employees, 100 employees, and their own legacy, you know infrastructure and legacy
Mm.
software, and you know you're pursuing all this new tech and this new stuff. It can be a great place to work, but if you want to move to the cloud and they're on
Yeah.
AS400s, then you
I've
might
been in that
yeah.
situation. Yeah. I've been in that situation, and I guess it might be considered leaving the company, like leaving because of the company. Um it was really 50-50. I've been in maybe one or two situations where I legit was like displeased, with the company,
Yeah.
and not just the manager.
Eh, Look, it's 90 out of 100 times probably going to be the manager, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um and but it's true, right? If you don't have that support there, then it's just like, well, what am I here for, right? Because and what's happened is it becomes that us versus them. You have a good
Yeah.
manager, but the organization is not that great. Well, our job is to get this place together, right? You can motivate yourself to say, well, the organization not where it needs to be, but our mission here is is to set an example. Our mission here is to set that tempo, right? To set
Right.
those standards, to provide that motivation, right? And to show that this is how a highly functional, a highly optimized group can perform. So you can buy yourself a lot of time when you have a common strategy and a common goal, a common mission, right? And that's what good leaders can do, right? So they can make people overlook, the fact that right outside the bubble, right, it's not so great. But this is why it's going to be better, right?
Yep.
Within a year, we're hoping that this is the case, right? And within 2 years, we're hoping this is the case. And within 3 years, we're hoping this is the case. Now, whether or not it happens exactly at a year, or if it's more like 14 months, and versus 2 years it's more like 27 months,
Right.
you're getting progress, and in that time frame you're building up a lot of experience and a lot of people who have intrinsic value now because they've been part of this and they've been watching things grow.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I always appreciate it when teams are structured in a way, at least in security, where you can have younger, more junior team members on the team, along with more senior professionals that are able to effectively lead and mentor the younger professionals. Um, I've always thought that that was just the best way to run really any team. I mean, unless you have a team of architects or something like that, a very senior role, very senior team in the org where you need experienced professionals, you know, I've always found having that staggered approach to be very successful. And it's a shame, but I haven't found that at very many places. I think I've only found that at one place. I mean, you know, when you were my manager, I mean, it was, you want to learn security? Come on in here. Like, yeah, get on in here. We're gonna get you some accounts. We're gonna get you a project. You're gonna learn this tech, and if you don't learn the tech, then maybe we'll throw you on help desk. But you'll learn the tech.
You'll learn it. What else you want to learn? Go ahead.
Yeah.
You're going to learn not to volunteer so much because
Oh, I stopped real quick.
here you go. But no, I mean, but those are good fostering situations, right? Where you can say, hey, do you have friends? Do you have
Right.
colleagues that you've worked with somewhere else who's looking for an opportunity, right? Because we're looking to give people the opportunity and a chance to grow, and that is good, right? You have more established, and then you can have that, you know, the youth
Hmm.
and people who have less experience come in because they provide different eyes, right? You can get so bogged up in doing things one way that you bring in somebody new, they're able to see and point out all your deficiencies and your gaps, right? They're like,
Yeah.
well, why are you guys doing this? And why are you doing that? And do you guys know that you have this there? So it's always good to get fresh eyes in because you can get stale, right? Being somewhere and seeing the same things over and over and over, it can become, well, this is the culture of this place, right? Just insert that the name of your company, right? And then just say, well, this is that place, right? This is how we do things. This is just how it is here. And so, the idea of fixing and improving certain things could become it could become something that becomes not realistic in a lot of the people's minds who have been there a long time because they just believe that this is just what this place is. Whereas people who are fresh to the place and new, it takes them a long time to to accept that. So you have a window there where you can actually get things kind of changed for the better.
Yeah, so I've been in that situation where they're very open to your thoughts on different things, and I've been in another situation where they tell you that that position is exactly that. We want some fresh eyes to come in, kind of tell us, what you think. Maybe we could do some things better. Just want to see what you think, and that's like your first 90 days in the role, right? And I've been in that situation where, 90 days in, I kind of show or I'm asking questions. Hey, why are we setting up, our uh malware remediation like this? Why are we setting up our sim like this? Why isn't it collecting from here? Why do we have um telnet open to critical systems? Um, why? Because it doesn't meet these security standards, and I'm just wondering how in the world we pass an audit. and it, I've had situations where it turns out really well, and I've had situations where you're put in a box and you're told, all right, well, you shouldn't be getting access to everything. Then we got to dial down what you got, and you're gonna sit there and you're gonna do this report once a week, and you're just gonna collect a paycheck. Just sit there and be quiet. We don't want to hear from you. Don't ask no questions.
And so what it sounds like, right? It's like those places have, like, I guess, poor
Dysfunction.
leader, or I would say poor leadership, right?
Extremely, yeah.
And because when you have a good leader, right, when you bring those kind of questions,
Yeah.
like up,
Yeah.
that leader takes responsibility to say, "Oh man, yeah, hey, it's because we messed up.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get this fixed for years. You want to help?"
Yeah.
You at least have a point of contact, right, for all this discrepancy. And a good leader is going to be there and be that centralized person that you can say, hey man, I got these 10 questions, and these might sound weird, but why are we doing these 10 things these 10 ways? It just doesn't really make sense to me from what I've been researching and learning. And
Yeah.
previous experience. Well, that person will say again, pull up a chair, Joe. I got a story to tell. And they can run you through all the different changes that might have occurred, right? All the different turnovers, all the different cultural things, all
Yep.
that to kind of give you a reason for why you're in the position that you're in. But then the best thing is to say, and now that we know that this is the situation, here's what we're going to do about it. And if
Yeah.
that don't
What do you
work,
think we should do about it?
and if that don't work, here's our exit plan.
Yep.
But it helps, right? Because then it can at least calm you down a little bit and settle you, right? For you thinking,
It puts you at ease
yeah,
rather than just being told, stop looking. It's like, what I'm a security guy. Like,
yeah,
we don't stop looking. This this is going to bother me when I go home. This
yeah,
is really going to bother me a lot because I mean, security people we're a interesting breed. When we see something wrong, we we just tend to have to fix it or put in, something that kind of resolves it or make it not as bad or we need to know a reason or a logic behind it. That's kind of how the security mindset is. That's how you should be because you need to be curious at all times. You need to be always learning. You always need to have your wits about you because you don't know what's going to happen. Um and putting that sort of person in a box isn't good. It's not good. And yeah,
there's an aspect of creativity, right? Because as a
mhm,
security guy, I mean, you're
you
talking
got to be
about
creative.
and so you got hackers, right? They're trying to figure out how to break stuff, right? How
Yeah.
to circumvent the way things are supposed to behave. You still have to have that kind of mindset on the other side when you're defending, because
Yeah.
you're looking at it from the perspective of if I wanted to break this, I could break it this way. So I need to put a control in place in order to stop somebody who
Yeah.
would look at this and take advantage of it. You're looking at it and saying, if I was going to take advantage of it, I would take advantage of it like this. So let's secure it. So it's kind of the same process, right? But we go to step further in saying instead of taking advantage of it to our, benefit,
Yeah.
right? We're going to remediate it, right? To the organization's benefit or the person who owns it benefit, right? Because we can very easily as well, turn that hole into an exploit, right? We
Right.
can exploit that very easily. So as a security professional, you do want to make sure that that skill and that curiosity is being supported. Because once you lose that, then you have a situation in which people stagnate, and then they see alerts in the sim, and they like, well, am I going to get in trouble if I bring this up?
Right.
This looks like
Right.
sideways movement across the network. But last time I brought this up, operations got mad at me because it turned out it was a false positive because, well, we didn't sign a piece of software internally. And
Yep.
so it did look, malicious at first. And then we found out it was just bad software development practices. But now I don't want to make a mistake of bringing something up again that can turn into, bad, spotlight for my group. You can't have a situation in which you know y- you're tempering that kind of quality in your people.
Yeah, I think this kind of brings us to a interesting uh red flag is micromanagement. You know,
Yeah,
I've been in situations where quite literally you had to take a tally at the end of the day and determine how many tickets you resolved, how many tickets you interacted with, how many alerts you interacted with and the various tools that they had. And you had to put it in a table, and managers would look at it and say, ah, they worked today. And everyone on the team had to do it. And I, I never felt so belittled before as a just a professional, as a professional, someone not in college, kind of experienced, right? Like I have, 5, 6, 7 years of experience. and I'm being micromanaged like that? What? Like, it was so concerning to me, and so man, like, it it destroyed me personally because it was like, man, I thought that this position was just something totally different. And I
Yeah.
even brought up micromanagement in the interview. Like, I even brought it up. And I was like, "Hey, if you micromanage here, if you micromanage me, I'm not going to come here. I don't do well in that environment. I don't like it, and I don't want it." And of course, the managers are always going to say, "Oh, don't worry about it. We never do that or anything." And then eventually when it came up, it was like, "Oh my god, like I made a mistake. I'm
It,
I made a mistake."
it's weird where when that gets triggered, right? Because
Yeah.
I've seen it also where they'll give you the freedom and then things will be going fine, but then all of a sudden they want these tallies for everything.
Yep.
And so, it's a wonder like, well, is this because of a leadership lack of leadership, right? Maybe from, senior management, they're not happy with what or where the, department is in terms of a strategic goal. And so this is that quick and dirty way of, proving that, people are producing something. And
Mhm.
so it's the tallies, right? It's the spreadsheets,
Yeah.
it's the tables of,
The
I interacted with
hours.
this. Yeah, yeah,
Oh my
how
god,
many
dude.
hours did you work on these activities per day and then do
Where's the
all this?
proof?
Yeah, and it's like, well,
Man.
I could use PowerShell and automate all this crap and then press a button and then it'll do all this in 2
But
minutes.
then where's my tallies at?
Where's my tallies?
I
And are you
appar-
going
I
you're not
apparently
gonna
need them tallies. So now I can't be a better professional and automate this manual task. But you want the tallies, so I'm going to hold my skill set down to not embarrass everyone else.
it's see the dynamics there, right? It's like, what are you actually looking for here, right? Where's the leadership here? Because yeah,
Yep.
you're creating conflicts of
Yeah.
interest, right? Now you got people worried about something that's not really going to drive a business or organization's mission, right? Tallying 30-minute to 30-minute activity is not going to help an organization meet its mission. Culture is going to help an organization meet its mission. And if your culture is micromanagement, then expect your organization to lose all of those creative, self-motivated people who
Yeah.
can find the most efficient, optimized way to perform the activities that you need them to perform.
I I personally I can never work for a micromanager. I just can't. I just can't. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, man,
What if they were to triple your salary? And
man, I'd be so miserable though.
yeah,
I'd be so miserable.
I have as somebody who likes documentation, right, and somebody who likes remaining organized, I don't mind doing exercises like that, right? But that's because
Mhm.
I'm kind of like sick in the head when it comes to that type of stuff. So I don't necessarily. I find it as a strategic outlet for or creative outlet for me. Like, okay, I need to create a template where I can track my work. And so I'm gonna
Yeah.
have this table and that column, and then I'm gonna do this font, and I'm gonna put my. So it becomes one of those things, right? Because I know in a month they're going to stop paying attention to it anyway, and it's not
Yep.
going to be used, right? So it just ends up becoming one of those things where I'm like, this is just another opportunity to kind of build a template. But as you're saying, right, it can be one of those situations where it's like it has you thinking about, well, what does this say about me, my organization? What do
Yep.
they want from me, and all of that, and it can be very difficult, right? And that's why, again, I think that a team lead in that situation helps a lot more
Yep.
because it's always tough to hear from your manager that, yeah, I know this damn timekeeping thing. Look, it's BS. But can you do it for me, right? And it's like, why don't you stand up for us and tell them hell no? Right. So
Right.
that's a tough spot for them to be in. Whereas a team lead has the ability to be like, man, suck it up, dude. We go do this for a month. It's just what we got to do.
Right.
And,
Right.
and and you could be like, man, it sucks, man. And team lead is like, hey, look, I'm telling you, this is gonna go away. Don't worry about it. Right.
Right.
And so they have that freedom, right, to kind of give you more of the insight of knowing that this is just some busy work. It's gonna go away. It sucks for all of us, right? Whereas your manager kind of has to keep that appearance that they're being like neutral when it
That
comes
is
to
a
that type of stuff.
that is a good point. I'll I'll, I'll give you that. It's a good point.
I'm just
But
saying, man.
but the only time that I've ever willingly kept track of my time like that, like in 30-minute increments, I mean, I've gone all the way down to 15-minute increments, so
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But the only time that I've willingly done it was when I was preparing for a legit battle between me and management, because management might have been under the impression that I was doing nothing or not doing enough or not doing what I said that I was doing, and I had to prove it to them.
See,
And I would
right?
have countless emails lined up, ready to go in a moment's notice, backed up off site too. Like, and I think that that might go back to like my bachelor's degree. My bachelor's degree was in criminal justice. And so like in my program, they actually like put you in front of the class and you had to argue a case, either, you know, defense or prosecution. You choose a side, you argue it, and then the professor, who's a legit lawyer, is going to sit up there and be the judge and I mean just badger the shit out of you, try and jar you and get you used to that sort of thing. That's just what their program was. And so I'm used to building my case. I'm used to having an abundance of proof. I mean, I mean, there was one time at a role where a customer wanted to fight some charges with me, and I don't do anything with billing, right? Like I'm just the app specialist. I'm just the help desk guy, trying to help out this customer. And they wanted to fight like a few $1,000s in charges with me that they messed up. And my billing guy said, "Hey, like, do you have any proof? Do you want to send it to me? You want me to write the email? What do you want me to do?" I'm like, "I'll handle it." And I mean, I sent them basically a dissertation on why they were going to pay us by the end of the week with proof, with lawyers and billing all CC'd. And I
Time
think
to
I
put that
ended the email with, "I expect your check in the mail by Friday." Like, I think I actually said that.
degree.
And like the billing guy came over and he was like, "Man, I couldn't have wrote a better email. That was so damn impressive. I'm saving that email."
Nice. Say all the new hires. Look at this.
Oh, I
Look at
mean,
this
they
was
were not
Joe.
they were not about to get this over. I mean, it was like, "No, I warned you. I warned you 20 times."
Yeah. But I mean, you have and I have. I mean, like, I think there are a lot of people who don't have some of the, I guess, coping,
Yeah.
right, mechanisms and the skills. And what happens is you'll see them get um overrun by bigger personalities,
Well, to be
right?
honest, we've seen some shit.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, we've been through it.
Yeah, and it's bigger personalities that will just flood you with informations and movements and catchphrases,
And they'll tell you
and
you have $2,500 for a trip, and then you come back and the budget was like $700, and now you got to pay for the 1800 out of pocket just to get your expenses approved. And
yeah,
I swear to God, man,
the
that
whole
guy.
world to them, they're the puppet master, and the world is a stage, and every
Yep.
single person they interact with is somebody that they're manipulating
To
in
get
some
promoted,
fashion.
they're
Yeah,
using them to get promoted.
and you'll see those kind of people because like Joe said, things have changed. They'll tell you this and now this is due. they'll put people in situations in which they, said that, hey, all I need you to do XYZ, and then all of a sudden you'll deliver XYZ, and there's this miraculous new, requirement that was due. And it's like, well, what about that? It's like,
Right.
you never mentioned that. It's like,
Right.
no, I did. Right.
Right.
And,
Where you basically have to record every conversation with them to hold them accountable. I mean,
yeah.
literally, it's not even an understatement. Like, I have seen this with a few managers, and it's
Yep.
like you basically have to record every conversation with them ever
Hmm.
to hold
Yeah.
them accountable.
And those are the kind of people you don't stick around for. Right.
Those are
And
the
you,
kind
and
of
you
people that you're there for 30 days and you leave. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
sometimes you just have to, you get in and you pull that that Abe Simpson. You go right into it, you see what's happening, and you turn around before you even sit down, right? It's like, I'm out of here,
yeah,
right? Because it's like, especially as you get familiar with seeing it, and you work at different places, you deal with different personalities, you start to realize that, yeah, no, that's not my kind of guy right there, or um, you know, it's the lack of transparency, right? The lack
yeah.
of honesty, the inability to listen, and the inability to take accountability for things, right? And being selfish, right? It's like you see that those people really desperately want a title. They really desperately want uh an
To be
item, right?
recognized.
A vehicle, right? Or
Yeah,
a Lamborghini, right?
yep.
It's something.
They want to be
and
recognized.
it's not all of them, right? You can want a Lamborghini and still be a cool person, right?
Right.
But if that's what, like, is driving you, then if you're having an issue with a person on your team and they're not delivering everything that you need to do in order to, be put in the spotlight at that next town hall, then you might say something wrong to that person,
Right.
right? And then next thing you know, you're in hot water because you know what? You stepped out of line and you disrespected another human being, and you don't have any support because you probably treated everybody else on the team the same way. And now when upper management comes down and asks questions about, how is he treating you guys,
Yeah.
oh, you getting lambasted.
But you know what? A lot of the times, upper management or HR typically don't get involved until like a major key resource leaves or someone, gets hired and 30 days later they leave. Normally, it doesn't have I've never been somewhere you know, where that sort of stuff was going on and HR or upper management, got involved until someone left. Like it took someone leaving.
It's amazing, right? Because like some of the things you bring up, and you'll see me laugh because it's like, boy, do I got stories about that. But I don't necessarily want to throw somebody under the bus that well.
We
I
can't
am
throw
a
people under the bus.
and have a degree of creative, writing and fiction, and that don't mean I'm a lie, but damn it, I'll create a scene for you, and and
We
and
can talk
and
about it.
the
We
imagery
just ain't
there,
gonna
right?
throw people out and companies.
Don't want to throw companies under the bus. Don't want to
No.
throw people under the bus. It's just the situation, right? It's the situation, right? It's like, hey, it was -10 degrees outside the other day, and I was standing on the bus stop, and it was cold as hell, and the bus didn't come. I don't care what bus company it was. It's the situation. Anybody can
Right.
relate to that
Right.
who are in that environment, right? So, but as you see, HR, they're there to protect the organization,
They're
not
there to
necessarily.
protect management.
Yeah, they're there, and well, they'll get rid of management if the management is foul, right? Because
I've seen that, yeah.
there are situations, right, where it's like, hey, if you are a senior leader and you're doing some really thing that could put the organization at jeopardy, where the
Yeah.
organization can be sued or get bad brand recognition, you can be in a paper for some salacious events. Well, HR will step in, right, because they have to protect the entire organization at that point. But if it's not at that level and it's just, management and their employees, well, they tend to side with the management, and they won't step in unless, again, they see something that's anomalous, right? On their, they have a little like a heart, meter that they're
Right.
looking at. And so they expect a certain amount of turnover, right? They get turnover metrics that they look at. So we expect this department to have 25% turnover on a year-to-year basis, right?
Right.
So if you leave and you're like, this place sucks, my manager's terrible. If you're a part of that 25%, well, guess what? You
We expect it.
yeah. But if you see a crazy surge where it's like, man, 80% of that apartment left in 3 months, that's
Yeah.
when it kind of becomes one of those things like, okay, something is going on here. Let's look into it.
I've man, I've seen dozens of people just leave all within the same couple months. I mean, it was an insane amount of people. It was crazy. And I mean, like, it was key resources. It was like, oh, the IAM team just lost all 5 of their leads. Like, all of
Wow.
them just quit. Oh, the AppSec team just lost, like, all of their talent. Like, there's no AppSec team. There's a roster of 0, you know? Like, I've seen, like, whole teams just leave because they get fed up with bad management or they don't trust the vision. That's the thing. As management, if you don't have vision and you can't state that vision properly to the people under you, man, it's not good. Because you know what? The smarter people are going to get really frustrated with that. The people that have been around longer, they're going to get frustrated with that. And they're just simply not going to accept it. And it kind of goes back to the first thing that we said. You know, you need to constantly be reselling the role to people because literally, you get fed up with something. It's not the 80s anymore where like it was the jobs market or like you know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
company's hiring market. Like now it's like the employees or potential employees market where it's like, well, I do have kind of more say about my pay. I do kind of have more say about my job duties and I can negotiate. I have a whole lot more room to negotiate nowadays. Because these skill sets, if you get really specialized in security, I mean, these skill sets are once in a year. Once in a year, you're going to come across someone with this, cryptography skill set that you need. And guess what? You got to pay them. You got to pay
Yeah.
them. You got to write in whatever they need in the contract. You got to treat them with respect. You got to have vision at all times. You got to, I mean, because these guys, like I said, they could get fired on the 25th floor, and by the time they hit the lobby, they're going to have an offer waiting for them with the receptionist and a nice BMW out front to pick them up and show them their new office. And lo and behold, you thought that they were missing out on a great opportunity. It's like, well, there's other ones out there.
Definitely.
You're not the only one out there that I can go to.
Not the only game in town.
Everyone needs security people, every company. It doesn't matter what you do anymore. It literally doesn't matter. Everyone needs security people. And yeah, security is becoming less focused around the tools, I think, and they're more focused around the experience. Right?
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
when I first got into security, it was very big on the tools. If you didn't know logarithm, guess what? You weren't getting hired here. Like it didn't matter. You just weren't getting the job. Even if you knew Splunk or Q Radar or another sim, you just weren't getting the job because logarithm's different. It has a different name. It has a different UI. They all work the same way, but it's a little different. Um, I feel like companies are dropping that quite a bit more because they're realizing the talent pool for these tools, if you get that specific, is going to be very small,
Yeah.
and you're going to have roles open for a year,
Yeah.
and they don't want that,
I would liken it to like going on a safari.
Yeah,
You can go with to a safari with somebody who just has a shotgun but no experience in that land
good
with
luck.
those animals. And or you can go with somebody who's actually been providing these safari tools for 20 years. They know this place inside and out. They know the animals' behavior, the seasons, what ticks them off.
Mhm.
And next to a pack of lions with no hood and no windows, because you know that the lions perceive the vehicle as a one big animal because of the size. Now, a shotgun in that situation wasn't as useful as that knowledge, right?
Right.
That tool wasn't as useful. You got the same amount of protection without having to have a big giant boom boom tool, right? And that's how security, like you said, is becoming. It's not necessarily about the tools, it's about the experience, because you may be able to put organizations in a better position just by having that inherent experience, by knowing this is why we don't do this.
Right.
Because you make yourself a target when you do this, right? This is why we don't do that, because you make yourself a target when you don't do that. Now, you could do all of that and put expensive tools in front of all of it, but if those tools have a vulnerability, if those
Or
tools
if they're not
supply
deployed.
yeah, if those tools supply chain get compromised and now there's hackers as a part of the release cycle for the tool, that tool's been
Future
owned for a year.
podcast.
Exactly. So you're definitely right, man. I think that it's getting there, but then at the same time, I think there's still a lot of residual there for, you know, you need 10 years of experience and 15 years in that tool when that tool's only been
Right.
around 2 years. And it's like there needs to still be that kind of cultural change where people realize that you want people who want to be in this space, you want to hire them because the mindset is different. And not a lot of people adopt the mindset of a security person, very easily.
Yeah. I've you know, it's always very frustrating when I'm told I'm not qualified for the role, even though everything in the job description I have done. And the only reason is because I don't have, 10, 15 years experience in security. Like, I'm sorry I took time to get my bachelor's degree and I worked through my master's degree. I'm sorry I took that time to do that, you know? Like, what is the difference between me having 7 years of experience and 10? What's the difference? I
Well,
mean, really, like, is there something that you can point to and be like, oh, you know what? I didn't understand this fully until year 10. You know what? I didn't understand Pam until year 10 of Pam.
yeah, yeah.
What? Like, like, come
That's
on. It's a
Yeah,
cop
and
out.
yeah, I there was a job that I went for back in I think 2016, and I was flown to another state. Right, this is when I still lived in Chicago. I was flown to another state,
Sheesh.
and the position was a position at an MSSP, and it was like a system engineering, a security engineering, security administrator role. And at the time, I was kind of in the management, space. So I had done all that, seen all that, done all that. And so I went through the interviews with like five different people. And there was one interview where we were talking about Wireshark. And they wrote down like six different Wireshark commands and outputs. And there was one command, and mind you, my experience with Wireshark has always been, experimental, as in I'm in my lab, I'm doing red team stuff. I want to
Right,
look at this, I have a CCNP. So I'm looking at Wireshark to make sure that my routing, protocols are working properly, and that spanning tree protocol is converging, right? So I have some experience with Wireshark, but not necessarily to the, there's a intruder trying to attack an interface. You see this flag. What does that flag mean?
right,
So he put a symbol on there where it was FTP and it's less than, and it was like some, server. So I pretty much had the answer, but I said it backwards. Do you know that they said that it would take them too long to get me up to speed in order to bring me on, even though everything else I had in that interview went extremely well. The lead architect actually came in. He came in last. He didn't know about the whole Wireshark person because he was before. He talked to me and says, I see the resume of a potential architect in front of me. That's what he said to me. And these guys totally was like, yeah, man, you don't know this about Wireshark? Man, it's gonna take us way too long to get you caught up. And I was like, how dare you? But at the same time, it was like, you know what? That's cool. Because if that's what you're making your decision on, well, that's fine. Let me go get the CISSP and the CCSP, and then you tell me how hard it is to do anything, right? Because I'm gonna bust my tail to get it. And so sometimes it's motivation when people tell you that you can't do something, right? And so then it just makes you say, well, you know what? I'm about to bust my tail, and I'll overcome this because I'm not going to let people put limits on me.
It's like they've never heard of Google.
Hey, I heard this quote about, I don't know if it was Einstein or something, but they say, you don't need to remember things like commands and checklists when you can research them, right? If there's a
Right.
list, then there's really no reason to keep that in your head. It's better to just research it, right? Like ports and protocols. You can memorize 1,000 ports and protocols, or you can go to portsandprotocols.com and look at the list, right? And so that way you don't have to retain that information and you can put it to better use.
Right. Yeah. Man, well, I think we did a pretty good job at covering this topic for the most part. Is there
Yeah, man.
anything that you think that we may have missed before we end it in our midweek session?
No, I think that this was, a nice little look at, leadership and some of the experiences we had, and people can provide us some comments and feedback on what they've seen and, give us their stories. So
Give it
that'll be awesome.
anonymously, anonymize it. Don't shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, and I won't pull out Wireshark and try to figure out who you was because I can't use Wireshark. So
Yeah, you're not experienced enough. Come
I'm
on,
not in.
man.
I'm not in.
Get off Wireshark. Just give it up.
Triggered, man. Triggered.
Just give it
I'm a
up.
cry tonight,
You
man.
need to go get a Wireshark, sir, before you can work here, sir. I don't know how they
Wasn't even
let you
going
in
to
the
be a part of
door.
my role. Wasn't even going to be a part of my role. It was just funny. But
Yeah,
no, I mean, leadership is great, and be a great leader, right? If you get the opportunity, listen to your team, hold people accountable, lead by example, listen, be aspirational, inspirational, and look into that emotional intelligence thing, man. Because I tell you, um, it hurts when you don't learn about that until later in your career. I can tell
yeah,
you from that personally, right? Like emotional intelligence is vital, soft skills are vital, and it just helps. So,
yeah. All right, everyone. We will talk to you later. See ya. Thanks for listening.